everyone. Thanks for joining us from wherever you are. Welcome to another new episode of Startups They'll Say. Today, I'm super excited to welcome Vishnu Subramanian to this podcast. Vishnu and I have been talking on and off the last 3 months or so. We first met on LinkedIn through a common post, like many connections these days. And I also had the great opportunity to meet him in person while I was visiting India a couple of months ago. So Vishnu was super kind enough to invite us to his offices, his studio, his lab, which he'll tell us all about very soon, and talk about his journey. And I thought it was fascinating in this current world and that we live in, where anything and everything we turn on, whether it's news or a podcast or whatnot, everybody talks about AI. And we thought, okay, why don't we bring in Vishnu here and hear from him about what he is doing in the world of AI. And so, Vishnu, welcome to the show.
Hey, hi, Anthony. Thanks for inviting me to your podcast. Hope your users enjoy this session. A little intro of me. Uh, my father was a banker, and I grew up when the banks were getting digitized. So he had a Unix book. That's how my introduction to computers got started. I kind of went through some of the Linux commands without really practicing, and I've been fighting with my father from probably my third standard to get a computer, and I got one when I finished 12th standard. And I spent most of my colleges and schools bunking them and spending in the college library or in the browsing center or in the gaming center. That's where I learned a lot. So I've been in the evolution of the computers much before I understood a lot of things. Like I was an early adopter for Yahoo Mail, MSN, Hotmail. Many people may not understand it at this point of time, but some of us will understand. My first internet connection was a BSNL dial-up, and things are super slow. From fighting with my father for getting a computer, now we are running a pretty decent sized GPU cloud cluster. And we also, through our partners, we bring in some of the advanced GPUs. So before we get there, let me tell you my journey, how it started into AI.
Mhm.
One day after my marriage, when everyone was watching my marriage video, I was in my Mac and reading through the TensorFlow documentation. Google announced TensorFlow one day probably on my day of marriage. And I was like thinking that I had a new Mac back then, and having a Mac was a big deal back then in India. Not many had it. And I was thinking that, oh, I should be able to run this TFM on my laptop. I tried doing that, and the Mac started crying badly. It got very hot. That's how I got introduced to the concept of GPUs. And me being a great fan of Terminator movie, I wanted to get into the AI. Tried understanding a couple of things, but dropped it a couple of times, thinking that it's more for PhD, not my kind of stuff. But did not give up. It was still curious, and then luckily I came across some of really good content by people like Jeremy Howard from Fast.ai, where some of the things started getting clear. I was able to build things, and luckily on the way I got introduced to Kaggle, where I started competing in Kaggle competitions. Was able to get into the top of the leaderboard, top 1% in the world, and luckily got some consulting assignments for companies, Fortune 500 and mid-sized companies, where help companies build their AI implementation. It was not called AI back then; it was usually ML or deep learning, which kind of morphed into AI, Gen AI, and all these stuff. But the basics still remain the same.
Yeah.
During this stint, I realized that the GPU compute is provided by the hyperscalers are very complicated to use and very expensive. Some of the companies in the US were trying to address this, but they were still expensive for a lot of people out there in countries like India and other places. So I naively thought that why not we do it in India and make it cheaper and make it super simple. That's how the journey started of my current company called Jarvis Labs, and the company name was inspired by the Jarvis from Marvel movies, which is an AI, probably which Sam Altman is trying to build, right? The AGI of the world, which is like super smart, does everything and all. It's inspired by that. We started this company around 2019 during the COVID. Before the COVID started, the COVID hit us badly. We got stuck in place for more than 8 months without able to do anything. But then things started slowly picking up, and now we are doing pretty well.
Awesome. So, Vishnu, I mean, based on what you said, I was going to ask you, what is your inspiration? You kind of touched upon your inspiration. What I gathered is obviously your dad helped you early on with Unix and whatnot with your first computer. Then looks like your marriage video was a cause of you getting inspired for AI as well. And then, of course, Terminator. So three people you need to thank for your journey, I guess. Right? Anyone I missed for your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I take inspiration from a lot of people.
Yeah,
Jeremy Howard from Fast.ai,
yeah,
Andrej Karpathy, if it's not for his Stanford open source curriculum, I would have not picked up AI, right? There are a lot of inspirations. The Sridhar Vembu on how to do business bootstrapped way, how to think long term. I take inspiration from a lot of people.
yeah. That is amazing because I tell myself this as well. I mean, you cannot shy away from taking inspiration even from a little child. Or there are times when I look at my dog do certain things, and I'm like, I mean, if the dog thinks that way, there's something in it for us to learn from that as well. So I love that.
Absolutely right. The dogs can teach us a lot.
Yeah, so let's go back a little bit in your journey, Vishnu. I mean, obviously you're having fun doing Jarvis Labs right now, but looking at your profile, looking at what you've done, I mean, you've done a lot on the data side of things, right? I mean, whether it's Hadoop or analytics or even business intelligence for that matter. I mean, so data was kind of ingrained in your blood, or from the beginning of your career, that's what you were doing. I'm assuming there was some sort of pivot you wanted, or something that you didn't like or you loved about data. Because I mean, without data, AI is nothing, right? I mean, you put in bad data. I mean, your bad data, your AI is as bad as the data you put in. So, can you tell us a little bit about that journey of where you started? I mean, where you ended up taking the pivot to this from your data journey, so to speak.
Interesting question. The way I look at it is slightly different. I'll give you some history towards it. My first job was in Wipro, which is a major IT service company in India. And I did not know the difference between services and products. So I was kind of getting bored of each of the project I was in Wipro. So I used to fight with my manager and say that, no, I'm not interested. I want to get into something else. So I started working with business. I think it's SAP BO, SAP Business Objects. Then moved to Java Swings and Applets, building a product for Best Buy, where probably you guys would sign it. That we did some parts of building that. So I've not been to Best Buy. Then my last project was Mastercard. I think a lot of things. So what also happened was till 2012 or something, it was primarily proprietary software, SAP, IBM, these software. So if you want to get into these, you need to have some account which helps you do it, or you need to get into an expensive training to get it. But the moment open source started kicking in the form of Android, Spring Hibernate, or Hadoop, things started changing. As long as you have a good internet, that's where we got 3G in India. So you do $100 or 200 rupees recharge, you get like 2 GB or 3 GB connection. Now you can start downloading things and a lot of things, right? That allowed me to get into the open source. And when I was working on business objects, I came across an interesting problem, which was also the route for me jumping into Hadoop. So we had a business objects report which was running for one of a big client, which started crashing because it was running for more than an hour. And I got curious when Google was able to do a search in like seconds. Why does this happen? Why we were not able to do that? So I naively asked my architect, who was a very smart lady, why is this happening? She was also clueless, but then I started digging deeper into it. That's where I came into this concept called MapReduce, how companies like Google addresses distributed computing and all those. That's where my interest started. And Wipro luckily got probably one of the earliest projects in the big data space for MasterCard, setting up one of their largest big data clusters. And Cloudera was a pioneer in that, Cloudera and Hortonworks, and MasterCard was a super NDA partner with Cloudera. So we had access to Cloudera engineers. I got an opportunity to learn a lot from them. That's how my journey into data started. And I then started moving out of, I moved out of Wipro, worked in a couple of startups on different things like reporting. And then I worked on an analytics company for some time where we were doing things like Spark and all those things. And Spark was also something super interesting. The problem with Hadoop was it was amazing, but the MapReduce was too complicated. The Java boilerplate and all this comes and goes. Spark, what it did is it kind of simplified everything. Whatever you could do in a much bigger file in MapReduce, you're able to do in one single line, dot map, dot reduce, and you're able to do it. Things got simplified over the next coming years. But that's how I jumped into the Spark. And then Spark had a subset library called machine learning. That's where I started getting into the k-means and random forest, all those things. That's how, and we started implementing it for some of our customers in the company. And that's where the Kaggle thing also started, where we were able to apply all this open source knowledge that I was gaining all these years on real problems, challenge, and learn from some of the best in the world. That's how the pivot happened. And I had to use GPUs in order to compete in Kaggle competitions, which needs a lot of GPUs. I had one, which my friend luckily got it when he was coming back from US, Titanic. We were not getting it back then. That's how the journey started.
Yeah, yeah. So you spoke a little bit about GPUs, and I think it's a nice kind of segue into what Jarvis Labs is doing right now, right? So maybe yeah, you can spend 2 minutes on where you got the idea or the inspiration for Jarvis Labs, right? And what are you trying to offer to whom, and who potentially should be looking at Jarvis Labs. So can you touch on that, Vishnu?
Got it. So, as I told you earlier, right, when I was working for one of the large companies, they were facing one specific problem. They had like huge servers in place with GPUs, but the DevOps team that they had were not able to address the needs of data scientists. So what was typically happening was the data scientists wanted a particular environment. Every time they want installations, they have to go to DevOps for permissions. It was the DevOps was built for a different kind of a beast, not for the AI world. They did not know how to handle it. So a lot of compute time was getting wasted. This was in the bigger companies, and in the smaller companies, it was much different. And for individuals, it was much different. It was much harder. Smaller companies cannot even have this DevOps team. So spinning up GPU instances, installing NVIDIA CUDA driver was very hard. So I wanted to kind of build a company, build a product which kind of makes this simplified. As I have done that several times for Kaggle competitions on platforms like AWS, GCP, struggle getting GPUs in those platforms, even though I was ready to pay at times, the very expensive ones, right? V100 and all, if you want to get it at that time, you need to wait for pretty long. You need approvals, which you hardly get. There were one or two smaller players which are like kind of wrappers on these things. They make it easier, but they were very expensive, not suitable for the SMBs, smaller companies to mid-sized companies, or for the individuals like us. So that's why the idea came of Jarvis Labs. Can we put 2080 Ti, the gaming cards, and then build a software layer on top of it, which kind of automates all the tools that are required for data scientists. So data scientists can just focus on model building or deployment and not worry about the software required for the infrastructure part. That's the idea with we started the company. After we made some bunch of initial orders, NVIDIA made a tweak to their licensing saying that you're not supposed to use this consumer GPUs in data centers. So we kind of had to take a pivot from that and say that, okay, let's buy the commercial GPUs. They were a bit expensive, but the story remained the same. So who can use Jarvis Labs if you're trying to do research, if you're trying to train your models on multi-GPU clusters or even on a single cluster with 8 GPUs or less GPUs? You don't want to get into monthly, yearly commitments. You want to pay just for a minute. You want to deploy your models very quickly, and you want to have a friendly tech team to support you in case you need something. Then probably you should look at Jarvis Labs. For people who have not really looked into cloud providers, we are an alternative solution to Google Cloud or AWS. The way I tell some of the VCs that I have met is AWS, GCP is good. They have a purpose. They are like the ones who manufacture BMW cars, but unfortunately, the entire world cannot buy a BMW or a Tesla. We need the smaller cars like Maruti, Hyundai for different use cases also. We offer that. So if you're an SMB spending huge amounts of money, you can just switch to a company like Jarvis Labs or us and reduce your DevOps cost, increase your efficiency, and save a lot of money.
That's a nice USP. So, but given what you're offering, I mean, who is using it today, Vishnu? Can you? I mean, again, you don't have to mention names if you can't, but I mean, at least give us an idea of who is using and what they're potentially using it for.
What they're potentially, okay, let's start with who is using it. Uh, so we start, since I was into Kaggle, our initial focus was people who are doing Kaggle competitions, right? We started that. We had a lot of Kagglers who actually gave us the initial feedback, helped us refine the product. But then the problem with Kaggle is they are like a competitions. There's a huge demand peak during the end of the competition, and we do not have much crowd using the product in the weekdays or when the competition is not ending, right? So we kind of started looking at more people, colleges, labs, or people who are offering online courses, companies who are doing researchers. Some of the top companies, both in the US and India, use Jarvis Labs for their research and for their model deployment purpose. There are universities from US where they want to research on building foundational models or diffusion models or multiple research, right? So they need clusters of A100s or H100s. These are some of our potential customers.
That's great. And then how long does it take for them to get started? I mean, is it like an easy plug and play? Let's say they want to you start using it from today to when they can start using the GPUs and apply a certain model using Jarvis Labs. I mean, what do you think? What do you think is the runway?
Yeah. So we offer two kinds of or I'll say that we have two kinds of uses. One is if you want to use the platform normally, you just put your credit card and you can start spinning your first instance in probably less than a minute. Putting the card will take 30 seconds and launching the instance is like 15 seconds. And you can start building your models, downloading your data sets and all those things. But if I was talking about the other use case where a university took a large cluster, that's why you have like contracts in place, then you have the banking transfer, and then we block a huge set of GPUs for them, and then they do it. That could probably take days because of the all the formalities that we have to go through. For a normal user, it's usually less than a minute or two.
Great. So the way I understood it, I mean, it's almost like SaaS versus a custom build sort of thing, right? I mean, the the first one is more swipe your credit card, create your account, you're ready to go. Your second one is a little more custom use case. You need a larger, processing power and larger amounts of data. So they need to work with you to create a custom project, so to speak, and a custom set of GPUs assigned for them. So that's a nice way to probably differentiate. So you said you started in 2019, Vishnu. I mean, where do you see yourself in the journey? And is has it been as per your vision as to where you are in your journey? I mean, and what are your plans next with Jarvis Labs?
We have come a long way for sure, and the AI space itself has changed a lot. So our initial focus was towards a very niche community, very small crowd. The market was not as big as it is today. The competition is not as fierce as it is today. So a lot of things have changed. People are moving towards contractless GPU compute requirement, or even people are moving towards token based billing, right? So they don't want to get into some of the use cases do not want to get into I want this X GPU or Y GPU. Rather, I want to uh, deploy my model and you just take care of the entire life cycle of that instance. Like what I mean is, let's say you fine tune a model which is specific for your use case. You don't want to keep this model running 24 by 7, 365 days. You want it to come up only when there is a request, just like how AWS Lambda works, right? Function as a service. That's one of the projects which we are actively investing in it. We are hoping to go live probably in a month's time, the first version of it. And we're also seeing that huge research is going on. What is the next thing, right? We have evolved as a platform where we enable companies to do a lot of things. So we are keeping a close eye on how the industry is evolving, and we are also making changes according to that to the platform. Okay. Got it. So was working. My last company was in Bangalore. I used to work in Chennai. These two are some of the biggest cities in India, which probably most of your audience would have heard of. The challenge with Bangalore is it's a very happening place, and it's also a very crowded place. You want to move from your house to your office, and to and fro, it can take anywhere between 2 to 3 hours, even though the distance is very short. That's one reason I did not want to continue in Bangalore. The second thing is, I have been a huge fan of Sridhar Vembu, where he has incorporated his one of his offices in a place called Thingasi, which is much smaller than Coimbatore. And the idea of that is a lot of product companies in the automobile sector or the companies which manufacture the rice preparation missions, right? They are in remote parts of Switzerland or remote parts of Europe, different Germany, and all, right? So you need a calm place for you to focus on building the product rather than getting into the rat race that a city offers you. So that inspired me to come to Coimbatore, and we don't actually stay in Coimbatore. For people who are native to Coimbatore, they say, "Oh, you are actually outside, or you're nearby village." That's how people used to say, "Oh, that village," but it's technically part of Coimbatore. It's a place called Coimbatore, and it used to be called Mini Ooty. I'm not sure if it's still called. Right now, the climate is really good. It almost looks like Mini Ooty. Coimbatore is a very clean, calm place. People are very respectful here. There's a famous Isha a spiritual place, but they teach yoga, and there are mountains all around. It's pretty close to Western Ghats and all, so it's a very peaceful place, away from all the happening things, and it's very closer to Bangalore. It's like 7 hours drive. So when I want to meet someone or when I want to go for a meetup, I just drive, have a break, enjoy the Bangalore's nightlife, and come back to Coimbatore. And staying in Coimbatore helps us to focus on the work and forget about everything else. And the cost is also way less than in Bangalore.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been a fan of Coimbatore, just personally speaking. Back in the day when I used to be in consulting, I mean, my company used to have an offshore facility in Coimbatore. I used to do a day trip coming into Coimbatore, but leave in the evening to go to Bangalore for another visit. I always wondered, I mean, when would I stay there for a night to spend a little more time? This time when I came to meet you, I was lucky enough to go around for a little bit, courtesy my friend who got me there. So next time, even more time in Coimbatore and the suburbs to learn about Coimbatore more. So I thoroughly enjoyed my trip, and I mean I hear all the reasons from you on why especially building something brand new and a product sort of a mindset and things like that. I mean, you need a lot more peace of mind and quiet that helps you do more with less time than just worry about, oh, let me spend 2 hours to get to work. Let me spend 2 hours coming back, and that stress itself is big. So, given that, I'm assuming, given you're living in Bangalore, I mean, in Coimbatore, you get a good night's sleep. But I'm sure Jarvis Labs keeps you up at night as well on certain things, your roadmap and what to do next. I mean, what are the things that you worry about or challenges that you see lying ahead, Vishnu?
That's a very interesting question. Something very difficult for a founder to answer. Probably a founder gets worried about it the most. When we started Jarvis Labs, there was little interest in our product. Not many people were interested in it. So we were like the dominant player. And we didn't have much competition. People were happy using us. Then a lot of interest in the VC world came in. During the COVID, you would have seen that zero interest rate, heavy VC funding went in, which also went in subsidizing the services we offer. Some of our competitors have subsidized the cost a lot. So that's one challenge that we currently face. The second thing is we're also seeing the industry getting more mature. The efficiency is increasing. We also need there are too many players today than what were there 2 years, 3 years back, and there are more are coming into it. That's typically one challenge. Of course, we are uh, kind of addressing that by not looking them as competitors rather than we are looking them at as partners. We have partnered with some of them for supplying us with the infrastructure. For example, we don't have a base in Europe, But now, through one of the partnerships with one of the largest data centers over there, we are able to offer H100s in the Europe region. We're also talking to some of the companies in the US. So sooner, in the next 1 or 2 months, you'll be able to launch GPUs that are closer to US region also. So we're trying to take that as an advantage. We also reduced investing in GPUs because we feel that there's abundance of GPUs available suddenly, thanks to all the VC money came in. Not just VC, real estate money and all this came in. In terms of technology, the technology has been evolving, right? Now it's not the small set of people who want to use AI, doctors, artists, lawyers, advocates. In the evening, I was talking to lawyers who are trying to bring in AI to address some of their use cases, dispute resolutions, automatic and all. So we are supporting them. So the technology has been changing. There are some misunderstandings of what the technology is capable of. So we are addressing those challenges. So it's an interesting time. Huge competition has increased. I think over the next few years, it will be consolidated. Again, thinking long term, keep lean and survive longer to actually have a better outcome.
You mentioned VCs a few times, Vishnu. I mean, in terms of where you are in the stage of the company, right? I mean, can you share a little bit about, I mean, are you, just in seed stage? You're waiting a little bit before you go for Series A or Series B? Or what are your plans in terms of, even getting investors into the company? I mean, you might say you don't want investors, but I mean, just for anyone listening and interested in Jarvis Labs, I mean, what is your message to them?
So we are a bootstrap company. We have not raised any external funding. In the initial few years, we had opportunities to talk to VCs, but they did not turn positive. But right now, we make enough. We don't need to raise money, and we want to remain that way. I also believe that remaining bootstrap offers a lot of freedom. And I don't want to run behind millions or billions of dollars. As long as we make enough and as long as we grow organically, we are happy with it. One of the advantages of staying in a place which is far away from the Silicon Valley of India is also that you don't need to be part of the rat race, right? We love building products, so we will continue doing it, but we don't want to run behind the money. We will make money, but we don't want to run behind it. So we don't want to go behind VC money because that is like taking uh, artificial way of scaling up. We want to see how we can take inspiration from companies like Zoho, Zerodha from India, on how we can grow organically, maintain a healthy lifestyle, and build a long-lasting company than a company that is built to be sold to someone else. So we are not raising funds, uh, at least as much as I can see in the future.
That is super inspiring, Vishnu. I mean, I wish every founder can say that, right? But I mean, obviously, you said rat race as well a few times. It's always a question of comparing one to the other, what's my valuation, all that sort of thing. But you offer a very refreshing perspective. And I love the references you always make to Zoho and others. I mean, I know a bunch of guys from Zoho as well and understand their culture, how they operate. I mean, if anyone listening here has not heard about Zoho, I mean, that's a super interesting case study and a big inspiration. Someone who comes from our state, Vishnu's and mine, which is Tamil Nadu. So go look up Zoho as well. So probably the last question for you, Vishnu, is you worked in a big company, like you said, you worked in smaller companies as well. Now you're a founder, you have a team, you have mouths to feed, and bill, paychecks to give and all that. So, and in today's generation, probably different from 20 years ago, where people wanted a paycheck to take home, they wanted stability. I mean, there's a lot more kids and college students trying to be founders, trying to be um, start their own company, bring their dream idea to life, and things like that. So, having been through this, I mean, what are your learnings or your advice you would give to somebody who's in the third year of college or fourth year of college trying to come out and be a founder? What are your two nuggets of advice or three nuggets of advice?
Okay. Uh, I would say don't wait till you finish your college, right? Because when you're in college, you're lucky enough for your father to be, for your mother to be funding you, your life. So you don't need to maintain your lifestyle. And you don't need to go and convince someone to work for you or work with you. I prefer work with you. You can convince your friends to work with you. So pick up an idea. And a lot of things has changed in the technology space. There is a concept called indie hackers, where you can build product, and with tools like GPT, Claude, building products have become a lot easier if you put enough amount of time and if you kind of read. So you can actually build product before you finish your final year, and if you're lucky or if you're planning enough, you'll be making money also on the way. So by the time you come out, either you have the experience building the product, or lucky, the best case scenario is you have built a product and you also made money, right? So then you'll have a better way to see whether you want to continue with that journey, or you'll know if it's not your cup of tea. Being a founder is very hard. uh, Kunal Shah, before I started Jarvis Labs, I have heard a lot of talks of Kunal Shah from Cred, who also is a founder of, I think, Free Charge. He sold that to Snapdeal or something like that. He says founder's journey is a lonely journey. I used to think, oh, that's maybe it's not me, maybe it's just him. But 4 years into it, I can say that's true, right? Because you have a lot of things going on in your head which you may not be able to share with everyone, or you may not even have the time to share with people, right? So it's good to try it in your college days and see if you want to do it. For people who come out of college, I would say try to get into particular space, which is usually the upcoming, pick up a domain knowledge and see how you can solve a problem differently. Watch a lot of videos of Y Combinator. There are a lot of videos of Sridhar Vembu, Zerodha. Learn from these people so that you will form a kind of insights on what you want to build. And probably that's a good way to start. Don't be dependent on VC money to start. That may or may not happen even if you want to. Just a small percentage of companies raise VC funding. A lot of college people I've spoken to, they expect that, oh, I will get funds to build this product through VC. Usually, VC companies don't fund for your ideas unless until you had like successful exits or you have a very different background.
Those are great pieces of advice, Vishnu. I mean, I wish I'd spoken to someone like you when I was in college. My first task when I was in college was to find a job, settle down, or go do my MS. But times have definitely changed, right? So your journey is super inspiring, not just for the next generation, but even for people like me. I mean, who've been working for plenty of years. And if you have an idea, if you have an inspiration, just go do it. Is what I learned from you. So maybe one last question and we can wrap up this session. I mean, because you're an AI, there's a lot of talk these days about whether AI this is just another bubble waiting to burst, or this is for real this time because of all the, money that is being pumped in. There's other stories about, oh, there's AI is waiting for a problem to solve, right? I mean, is technology looking for a problem? Having been in this space much longer than, at least me and many others, and you've put in your days and nights into AI building this company. I mean, what is your general take on the state of the industry right now, and where do you think it's going to go?
So AI is definitely not a bubble, right? Whether all the companies, all the VC funding will make a profit, maybe not. But let's say for a hypothetical scenario where all the funding for AI and all the research work for AI stops right this minute, right? Even then, instead of have needing 100 people team, you can build a lot of products with a small 3 or 10 people company can still do the same. Uh, it revolutionizes education. For example, in Indian space, right, you have like for 30 or 60 students, one teacher. So with AI, that can completely change. We don't need much advancements in AI. Of course, there's a cost involved in it, but assuming that the cost, engineering is something easier to solve than going towards the AGI. So I don't think it's a bubble. A lot can be done with. We have just scratched the surface. That's how I see it. It's not searching for a problem. It's we have to figure out how to solve the problems that we have. rather than solving the fanciest problem. If you're trying to see innovative ways of how to use it, probably sky is the limit. Will it be AGI? That's a completely different thing, which I don't agree, and I don't want that to be true.
Okay, awesome. That's a great insight and nice perspective from someone who is breathing this day in and day out. So thanks so much for that, Vishnu. So let's wrap it up here. I sincerely appreciate you taking the time, India evening time, to jump on this and share your insights about Jarvis Labs. I'm sure we'll do another episode, yeah, say 6 months down the line, see, looking at your growth and what else you've learned. But Vishnu, thanks so much for joining us. All the best to you and Jarvis Labs and your team, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you, Anthony. All the best for you too. See you. Bye bye.